Good morning everybody, thank you for joining me. I've decided to do another story time video. I'm going to start by very tediously apologising for the light. I have been wanting to film this video for about a week and the bright sunshine makes it so difficult to find a decent filming spot in my house, and then when it's dull the daylight isn't good enough to film, and it's just been difficult. So it was really sunny again this morning. It's due to be sunny all day, but I decided to just film anyway, so I apologise for the distracting sunbeams, and they'll probably change throughout the video because that's what happens at this time of year. So that having been said, I had a really good response to my last story time video, which I talked about how I met my husband, how we met and got together, and I thought it would be fun to do another one about our wedding. I haven't made notes, so it might be rambly, but this kind of video, it's kind of fun just to sit and talk and not be too structured, I think. So I apologise if I'm a bit rambly. You might want to go and make a cup of tea now. In fact, I'm kind of wishing I'd made one before I started. But so let's start by talking about the proposal. Now, some people have a lovely proposal story, don't they? I mean, my brother proposed to his wife at the top of the Eiffel Tower, produced a diamond ring and proposed there. Isn't that nice? I haven't got a story like that. It was... I don't think there was actually a proposal as such. I think I sort of said to Ashley that I'd quite like to get married, and he went along with it, and then I said that I'd like a ring. So romantic, isn't it? So yeah, I was living in my flat in Bournemouth, and Ashley was living down in Torquay still, and Devon, and we were doing a sort of long distance relationship. We would see each other at weekends, and I planned to move down to Devon early in the year of, I'm just trying to think what year it was. What year was it? Yeah, the year we got married, so it was 1996, I think, or did we get married in 97? No, 1996. Oh dear, you'd think I'd look this stuff up before I started making a video about it, wouldn't you? Yeah, so we were having a long distance relationship. We were seeing each other at weekends, and one weekend I suggested to Ashley that it would be nice to get married and get engaged, and that I'd like to go and get an engagement ring. And we were in Bournemouth that particular weekend. We used to switch about. I would come down here one weekend, he would go up to Bournemouth to see me the next weekend. And we were in Bournemouth and we went out shopping for a ring, and I got a diamond solitaire. I no longer wear it. The rings that I wear now are not my original engagement and wedding rings. My wedding ring doesn't fit me anymore because I've put on some weight. My engagement ring does still fit me, but Ashley bought me another solitaire about 10 years ago, and I wear that one instead. I can't wear them both, so I tend to wear that one instead. I really ought to wear my engagement ring still, shouldn't I? Anyway, I'll pop a picture in here of my engagement ring so you can see that. It was rose gold on the top. It was second-hand, antique. But second-hand jewellery is much better value than new. A lot of people wouldn't be happy with a second-hand engagement ring, and that's fine, that's absolutely their prerogative, and I was quite happy to get a second-hand one. I particularly like rose gold, which in those days wasn't a thing at all. I didn't like yellow gold back then, and I really wanted rose gold, and it was set in rose gold at the top, which really appealed to me. And rose gold wasn't particularly current then either. As I said, it wasn't a thing, and so it was difficult to get a new ring in rose gold. So after trawling around several shops, we bought that ring and went home, and I was very thrilled with it. And then we told our families that we were getting engaged. Ashley wanted to tell his grandmother before he told his parents, because she was sort of what he perceived as the head of his family, the matriarch of the family, if you like. His grandfather was dead. But yeah, so he wanted to tell her first, I remember, which was really nice. And he phoned his parents and told them, and we phoned my parents and told them, and everybody was very pleased for us, so that was lovely. So then it came to planning the wedding. And we looked at lots and lots of different venues. I knew that what I wanted was in those days, you could really get married only in a church or a registry office, and it had just come in that I think it had just changed, the law was on the cusp of changing, so you could get married in any licensed venue, but the venue had to be licensed for weddings, and there were very few of these venues, and there wasn't one that was suitable for us to get married. And I didn't want to have a wedding, Ashley wasn't very religious, but I wanted quite a traditional wedding. When I say Ashley wasn't very religious, Ashley's absolutely not into religion in any way, shape or form. I'm not particularly either, but quite like the traditional pomp and circumstance, if you like, of the wedding ceremonies and so on. So that was quite problematic. I also didn't want all the guests to have to go to one place for us to get married and then all get in their cars and drive to the place for the reception. I really wanted to do it all in one place, and it was very difficult to find somewhere that was licensed for weddings to do this because so few places were licensed then. So that was a bit of a problem, really. We then found a hotel that was absolutely beautiful. It was in the New Forest, which is a beautiful area in Hampshire of countryside, and this was an old sort of stately home manor type place. It was called Rhinefield House. It's still there now. It's still a hotel now. I will put a link in or something so you can see that if you want to see that. And absolutely fell in love with it. It had this huge room with massive stone fireplace, high ceilings, just lent itself perfectly to being a wedding venue. And we absolutely fell in love with that, but the problem remained how we were going to get married there, because it wasn't licensed. It didn't have a license for people to get married. So don't laugh, but I found a vicar in the free ads, which was a free paper of classified adverts. There was no internet in those days, don't forget, or very, very little. Certainly not anything like it is now. And so if you wanted to sell your things secondhand, you'd advertise them. It's a bit like Exchange and Mart, that type of thing. And I found a vicar who would do wedding ceremonies. He was a proper vicar, a genuine vicar, and he would carry out the ceremony. It would be word for word, exactly like a church wedding ceremony, but there was a catch: it wasn't legal. You get a wedding certificate and everything, but you weren't legally married because the venue wasn't licensed. But this particular vicar was happy to do. He was a very progressive vicar. He was quite sweet, actually, quite young. And we met with him and we liked him and we decided to go with that. But the problem remained that we weren't going to be legally married. So what we had to do was, a week before our wedding that we planned, we went to the local register office, just us and two friends who were our witnesses, and we got married there. Ashley wore jeans and I wore sort of a bit of a hippie dress and a hat, and I had a bunch of daisies, and I drove there in my car because I went straight from work, and Ashley drove in his car, and when we finished, we drove back in separate cars as well. It was the most unromantic thing ever, and we literally did the quickest. This, I don't know if I said it was in the local register office in it was in Paynton in Devon, was our local registry office at the time, and it was the most unromantic thing. We had the shortest possible number of words. There were no rings, no nothing, because obviously we perceived that our other wedding, the wedding we'd arranged with all our guests, was the real thing, and this was just a bit of a sort of a box ticking exercise, if you like. And we actually had a great afternoon. I'd been at work all morning. I'd gone straight from work because obviously I wanted to take the time off work for my honeymoon after the real wedding, and met up with our friends at the registry office, got married. It took about 5 minutes, less than that I think. And Then we went off and had fish and chips on Babacom Downs, which overlooks the sea in Torquay, and a bottle of vintage Moët Chandon, which was, at the time, vintage champagne was a real big thing for us. Not that I drink loads of it now, but you know, a bottle of champagne was quite expensive. So yeah, that was really quite fun. We ended up having a fun afternoon, and so when we actually got married at our main wedding, if you like, I've just realised I've got a lamp appearing coming out the back of my head. That was really nicely set up, wasn't it? Yeah, when we had our other wedding, very few people knew, other than our parents and the couple who had come as witnesses to our wedding, our first wedding. Very few people knew that we were actually already married to each other. So, and I don't think we ever really advertised the fact. I don't think anybody ever really found out. So our actual anniversary date, we celebrate on the day of the big wedding. And I couldn't even tell you without going and looking at my wedding certificate what date we actually got married. Our wedding was on the 2nd of June. And I'm pretty sure that it was about a week before that, so I've got a feeling it was like the 24th of May or something, but I honestly don't know. Isn't that bizarre? Anyway, that's how we got married twice, how I married Ashley twice within a week. I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about the detail of the wedding. We had a beautiful day. Weather-wise, it wasn't ideal. It was cloudy and overcast because it was England and it was June, so what do you expect? And we did have a little bit of rain, but not loads, just a little bit, so that was okay. My dress was, I have my dress here to show you. Ivory with a gold overlay. I've shopped with my mum for my dress, again very traditional, and I found a dress that I absolutely fell in love with that had a lot of gold on it, and couldn't afford it. It was just completely out of our price range. So I eventually had it made by a seamstress down here in Devon, and I explained to her this dress that I'd seen, and she made me something very similar, which is lovely. I'm going to just flip you round so I can show it to you now. This is my wedding dress. It's kind of difficult to see. That's the top of it. It was sort of off the shoulder, and it's got this beautiful gold overlay. It's very straight, and then just ivory satin. It's got quite a big split up the back, and it's got really pretty button detail down the back as well. I just wanted to give you a quick flavour of that. Doesn't fit me anymore. Let me see. The style of wedding dresses at the time when I got married was quite big and puffy, full skirts and so on. I really didn't want that. So I have my dress, but my dress is very straight, obviously. I'm going to put pictures in here while I talk about it. Got some other bits to show you as well. This was my head dress. It's faded a bit over the years, and this was made for me by the same lady who made my dress. It's got the gold in, with flowers, and a comb went into my hair like that. God, it looks so old-fashioned now. And the same fabric from my dress on the petals there. And I've still got my veil, which was quite short, but was edged in like this. I think they called it buttermilk colour at the time. Just put that. Fairly simple. These were my shoes. I bought these from a local discount store. They're quite ugly actually. I don't like them at all anymore, but I guess they were quite the thing back in 1996. They were really cheap. I think I paid about £10 for those. And I've still got all our wedding cards and all our engagement cards. I don't often look at them, but oh, what's that? Oh, it's a little silver horseshoe that somebody must have given us. It's just nice to have them. I've also got, randomly, the actual stockings I wore on my wedding day. Bizarre, isn't it? And I've got this big lacy garter that I also wore that has a little blue flower. That was for my something blue. I had 2 bridesmaids. We didn't have any children at the wedding. We weren't keen on children. I didn't have many friends with children at the time, so that kind of worked out well. And so both my bridesmaids were adults. One was an old friend from I worked on the ships with, Sam, and one was my cousin Angela. They wore gold. Their dresses were handmade by a friend of my mum's. I remember buying the pattern from a shop in Torquay for their dresses. This is the actual brochure from the hotel that we got married in at the time. There is the picture of it. Gosh, this looks old-fashioned looking back through this. And this was the back with a beautiful lake. It was so, so beautiful. I've just found the actual registry office thing from our registry office wedding, and it was indeed the 24th of May, so I guessed that right. I'm just going through some of the bits and pieces I've got in my wedding memorabilia box. Obviously we were on a budget for our wedding, and we spent the majority of the money, as I'm sure most people do, on the venue and the food and drink. And so to keep costs down, I made all the wedding invitations myself. I made all the menus myself, and I made all the little table cards myself. I've still got Ashley's and mine, place cards, that's what I'm trying to say. So I made all of these myself. I don't think I've got a copy of the invitation that I made still, but I've got the menu from the wedding. I shall tell you what we had. We had salad of flaked salmon and French beans served with a shallot dressing for a starter, and then breast of chicken with asparagus wrapped in phyllo pastry and served with white wine and tarragon sauce with fresh seasonal vegetables for a main course, and fresh strawberries layered between sweet pastry biscuits with a light cream, followed by coffee and mince. I don't remember anything about the food. I seem to think I was too excited to eat very much. Drank quite a lot though. But yeah, I don't remember really eating very much at all, or indeed what the food was like, but I think it went down well at the time. So we had about 100 people for a sit-down meal. We didn't want a disco or anything in the evening. Ashley bloody hates dancing. I can count on one hand the number of times Ashley has danced with me since I've met him. True story. So yeah, we didn't want to have a disco or anything or a band or anything that involved dancing, so we went on to another hotel in the evening and had a buffet for some of the guests who come from a long way away, and just a very low-key sitting around in the hotel lounge and having drinks and chatting, which was actually really nice, very laid back and quite enjoyable. Neither of us were bothered about having any sort of big evening do, so that was quite good. I've just found the table plan that I did for the wedding. I didn't know I still had that. Oh God, I remember sitting for hours figuring out who was going to sit on which table and who couldn't be put next to who because they might not get on with them or had a row with them, and yeah, it was quite stressful, that. I don't think I was very much of a bridezilla. I think my mum and I had one real big ding-dong through the whole process. In fact, my mum and dad and me had a bit of a big falling out, but it was, everybody got everything they had to say off their chest. We're quite good at that. Me and my mum are very similar in that way. And get it off your chest and get over it. But that's what I'm like. I blow up and then I calm down again pretty quickly. So that's always good. So it didn't take long to get over it. I'm just looking at this book I had, which is an old-fashioned keep book for the bride, which has all sorts of stuff about, just seeing if I got it, which I filled in with the guest names and when they replied to the invitation, and there's all sorts of bits and pieces in here. Examples of the fabric from my dress there. All about the flowers. That was done by, the flowers were done by a friend of my mum's. I'm not gonna lie, I was really disappointed with my bouquet. I wanted it to have loads and loads of trailing ivy. It sort of I don't know, like a countryside look almost, and it didn't have any, and I wasn't impressed with the flowers overall, to be honest. I was disappointed with them. Not that it made any difference, a flower's a flower, isn't it? You know, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, my bouquet wasn't how I envisaged it was going to be inside my head at all. Perhaps I didn't explain what I wanted properly, you know. The cake was interesting. We had, I'm not big into fruit cake at all, and Ashley can take it or leave it. We end up having, the middle layer was chocolate, which was quite avant-garde in those days. I know people do all sorts of different cakes these days for weddings, but yeah, it was quite a departure. So the middle layer was chocolate. And the cake decoration was decorated with gold flowers with green leaves. And when it arrived the day before the wedding, the green leaves were bright lime green, just hideous, such a horrible colour. I remember painting them all in dark green food colouring one by one the day before my wedding, which was quite funny. I did my own makeup for my wedding, and my friend Lynn, who was a work colleague at the time, did my hair for me. My hair looked lovely, I was really pleased with it. And I still see Lynn now, which is nice. We go out walking quite often. I was given away by my dad. It was very traditional in that way. We walked down the aisle together and travelled in the car to the ceremony. I remember my dad being really quite nervous, bless him, beforehand. And there's a photograph, if I can find it I'll put it in, of us walking down the aisle together that just someone snapped, not an official photograph, and my dad looks so proud. It was one of my favourite pictures of him. It's lovely. I do have a video of the wedding, and I have tried really hard to get it into a digital format so I could cut some bits in to this video, because I thought it would be a really good way of or a nice thing to do, to be able to look back on it digitally, and I cannot get it digital. It was actually on a video cassette, VHS cassette, because obviously DVDs weren't a thing then, and we had it subsequently put onto DVD, but I can't get it into digital format at all, unfortunately. I've spent a lot of hours trying, which it's a real shame, but I've got lots of photographs that I'm going to put in from my wedding album throughout this, so you can see some pictures of it. And it's quite funny because your wedding is such a big thing at the time, and so exciting and so lovely, and really fun to plan, and it's such a big thing in your life, and yet I very rarely think about my wedding now. I watched the DVD recently because I've been trying to get the files off to put them into this video, but other than that I rarely look through the photographs or as I say, watch the DVD, or really even think very much about it. But it's been nice actually to reminisce in this way. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed making it again. I tell you what I'd really like you to do is, in the comments, tell me something about your wedding, either something funny or something that happened that shouldn't have happened, or just something about your wedding. Just get a bit of chat going in the comments, because that's always fun for me to read back, you know. Anyway, that's it. I hope you've enjoyed it, guys, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye bye.